So, when I go through hitting rock bottom and finding what benefits are to life, food stamps first. Food stamps does what? It keeps you alive. Ooh, I got a bag of cereal I'm chewing on. And now I'm fighting food stamps. So I had 2 months of malnourishment last year, one for the November shutdown, which took away, a prorated time. And then they shut my food stamps off illegally in February. And I'm catching, USPS mail fraud in a deep state thing where they hold on to it for an extra day. That was both for WEAP, which was, energy assistance program, so that way I can get back on my feet after my grandma and mom passing. And so the stuff that's humane, I don't want to keep name dropping for lawsuits reasons, but you'd think Lynn Hunstra or Chelsea Yeske. Lynn Hunstra is a psychologist, psychiatrist from Jackson County Health and Human Services that I used for couple counseling years ago. And again, I'm not mad at people to retaliate, but this is just clinical discussion as you judge me and say I have suicidal ideology. I go through all the same paperworks of defining what it is that puts people into this mood. And so back to the point is first, everybody wants food. That's how you survive. That's how you live. That's how you wake up. All right, I'm hungry. Then you eat food. Add a little bit of milk. You survive. Now you survive. Now you go to Workforce Connections. You go to Manpower, and you get yourself a job. And between Manpower and Workforce Connections, what they should always have to do, part of their policy, in my opinion, is get you your unemployment if you have any back pay, right? They assist you in getting that. Assist you in the state aid we pay our taxes for. And this is where it's backwards. Does Chelsea Elsky pay in taxes? Well, how much is your house? House taxes. How much is your income taxes? And this is where I laugh psychologically, which would sound really ignorant to understand how much does a person in Beverly Hills pay? $30,000 just in property taxes. Okay, and this is for plowing, mail, everything else that those taxes go to. Then you have your income taxes, it goes toward the government workers for your unemployment, everything else. You pay those people's bills, you give them their paycheck. Technically, the people pay the government, right? That's what your taxes go for, your property taxes and your income taxes. You pay them, and you pay them to do the job. That means Owen's taxes from Tom Hurling, Best Buds, TuneCore, BMI, Flying J, Arby's, Super 8, American, Durst Insulation, Hurling Construction, Thermofoam Solutions, Chadburn Hall, UW Madison, Monona Academy of Dance, Wisconsin, Broadhead High School. Every part of my income taxes pays Chelsea Yeske and Lynn Hunstra to have their jobs for when I need psychological help. And then I go through every little piece of data that would define you as clinically sane, insane, what would be important to why you would need to go to counseling, couples counseling, mental health counseling, et cetera, defamations or personal described help. And so when you allow somebody else to judge you, psychologist, psychiatrist, police officer, etc., they're allowed to, say that's a criminal or that person's a psychopath or a serial killer. When they diagnosis, okay, bipolar, schizophrenic, etc. And so when I go through all these extra timesheets that Travis Davenport burned years ago that are about to be applied for the same thing as the neglected unemployment, is all these extra timesheets I have sitting here from the first time I worked for him. And it says 2009. I started in June. And if you see 42 hours, 47 hours, 40 hours, 45 hours, 46 hours, 45 hours, etc. And so when I go through that, that's 1 week. Next week was low, 44 hours, 30 hours, 17 hours, 19, 29, 22. And this is back in 2009. But I made a copy of these, and we ended up getting a scuffle that I was going to go into the Better Business Bureau at, again, time and a half, etc. And when they don't pay their unemployment in, I had to make a photocopy of these timesheets. And what we ended up doing is we got in a fight, and he ended up burning them later. And so by the time I go through this, and I worked for him 3 times, the first time, the second time, and the third time was recent of 2017, 2020, about the end of 2019, somewhere in there. And so in that, when you go through it, and again, I'm glad I made copies because, one, in defamations, two, employer brutality or retaliation. This is what I have to take to court now for child support, which again, they have to prove or contest that the timesheets did or didn't exist, which again, how would I have been paying for my house back then if I didn't work for you? One, and two, again, if you try to evade the taxes, again, it's going to be the proof because I owned a house back then. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to keep my house for another year. And, employees as well as exes. And so if you guys don't proceed, that my mental health doesn't have to do with that. That's why you go into counseling. And so you go into counseling and you say, what am I doing wrong? And instead of Lynn Hunstra writing down, well, he became suicidal because he couldn't get his unemployment, which is a reason, or the burning of my timesheets, which is employer brutality, or retaliation of a day I threatened to go to the Better Business Bureau to make sure I get my time and a half, or get my unemployment, as they play 2 sets of books or whatever games they do. When you go back to then the clinical notes of myself in this, and again, this is what we call self-loathing. And self-loathing is good and it's bad. Self-loathing can make you, can actually direct you in a better direction of life, trying to find a better employer. Is this something you want to put, on your record? So I said, hey, Blackfoot Memorial Hospital, the time I spent up here, please give me a copy of my health benefits. Owen Bradley Ewell, 8/13/2025. I wanted to know, I wanted to get my verifications between 95 and 2015, or roughly when I had testicle surgery, for verification, as well as just keeping up with my own medical records, that they don't change their notes in between. And again, I can find like 6, 7 things that get changed or copied and pasted between, etc., etc. First time, 14 years old, Owen, who put a deer stand up in a tree, back pain. I had sprained my back carrying a tree stand. Just super, super simple stuff. And, let's see, 2022, ER coming in contact with brush. I ran into some poison oak. They ended up giving me, poison oak calamine lotion, medication, Meldrol, whatever, stuff that they're interested in, that I'm not interested in. I'm just keeping up with my own doctor's notes to get them printed off, so that way they can't copy and paste and change their defamations of you and their diagnosis. And again, is this my narcissism repeating back that these are bad people? No, you go in there to document proof. And so it's a good thing of whether or not they do document and the reasons, okay? And so in those reasons, why I would have suicidal ideology is the same reasons you want to be humane. And back to the point, the humane side of me taking care of my own mental health records. And again, this goes through whether or not it's on drugs or just depressants, whatever else, in my own self-prescribed troubleshooting on Earth. Again, who was the first person to eat the red cap mushroom with the white dots on it and then died? Well, there was one person that ate it. Hey, go eat that. Tell me what it does. And they eat it, and then they die. And then there was Lynn Hunstra sitting there. I'll write about it. That dumbass ate the red and white polka dotted mushroom. And it takes one person to take the chance in life. What does a maple tree, what does maple syrup do? What does corn on the cob do? What does an apple do? What does an orange do? So let me go just pick this apple off the tree, take a bite of it. Will I die? And it takes one person to take the risk. Travis Pastrana doing a quadruple backflip, or Owen Yule eating the first apple or orange or banana off a tree, or eating golden cap mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, or the red capped polka dotted mushroom that kills you. That's poisonous. Again, there's lots of mushrooms that are poisonous. Non-suggestive. Please don't try this at home. But it takes one person to experiment and one person to write it down. And so you have the observer or the manipulator. And here's the funniest thing. A manipulator is just the observer. Hey, Owen, go try that golden cap mushroom. Go try that red capped white polka dotted mushroom. See if you live or die. And so it takes a manipulator. It takes Charles Manson. It takes a doctor. It takes a psychiatrist and a psychologist to push you over to that mushroom and say, "Oh, and you try and eat the apple. You try and eat the mushroom. You try and eat the banana." And I say, "Sure. I will go to couples counseling. I will talk about it. Let's try and eat it." And I die. And it took the manipulator to get me to die. And the manipulator, what they do is they get to write it down and say, "Ha ha ha ha! I convinced them psychologically to take a risk." On making sure I survive as Lynn Hunstra, as I survive as Dan Dean, judge of Black River Falls, who makes sure that the person of interest in this red-capped, white polka-dotted mushroom lives or dies. Does he have interest in the mushroom? Does it have accumulating financial interest? Or is it just something that's interesting? And so when you go through this is just communication. But every part of reality of hitting rock bottom, uh, you want to dissect it. You want to make sure humane exists. And so, whether or not I like to read what other people typed about me, and it's an obsession where I actually think, okay, what would be the important notes of this for myself? Well, it's just to keep track of yourself. Well, why do we even go to the doctor? That's a great question. And so what you end up finding is in that the person that observes you testing the food, whether it's orange, apple, banana, grapefruit, whether you realize you can peel open a clam and eat it, whether you live or die after you eat those items. And look at how far we've come. 2026 years, they say, that it took us to establish some type of doctrine or book. And I can't remember what the book's called, but where you actually write down every peanut, every strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, and whether you live and whether you die. It always takes one dumbass to go eat the blueberry, whether it's a poisonous blueberry, a schnozberry, or if it's a blueberry, right? And so when you go through that thought process in depth, who was that first dumbass that ate, the red cap, white polka dotted mushroom that died? And then it takes clinical psychologists, is what they call themselves, to sit there and observe it and start writing it down. And I kept a book of it. I kept a book of what they wrote down. I'm the person that died, taking a risk for their health. So is it the person in action? And I have to ask this to my audience. Is it the person in action to go eat the mushroom that's the dumbass? Or are they the smartest one to help their kids survive? That's a tough question, isn't it? Do you eat the golden cap mushroom, the red capped white polka dotted mushroom, the shiitake mushroom? And we could go through this in the National Auburn Society of which ones are edible and which ones aren't. And so when you go through this, there's always that scared person, scared to go skydiving, scared to go swimming. They're scared. What is it they're scared of? Are they scared of life? Well, back to my point, to the point of this video. You want to get food stamps. You want to feed yourself. You want to survive. And what I'm witnessing within Dane County Health and Human Services, Jackson County Health and Human Services, the United States Health and Human Services, is we're getting so far loopholed into not remaining humane that in this weird psychiatric diagnosis, we're starting to loophole ourselves back out of food stamps on how you survive the next day. we're loopholing ourselves back out of food stamps. So I went 2 months last year malnourished, and now I'm about to be prorated in another month, even though I filled out everything, did everything right, and I just don't have enough income financially off of music, whatever else. Again, it's not hurting me. I'm lucky enough to even make a couple dollars a year off music. Some people can't even make $1. So I'm pretty blessed. I shouldn't bitch. Okay. But going through all of this, where I'm here without electricity, I'm going through all of my diagnoses of myself. Um, as I'm sitting here looking for the National Auburn Society, I must have put that into. I'm moving here pretty soon. But in that side of comprehension, which I wanted to show as an example, um, the Auburn Society mushroom book of what's poisonous and kills you and what's not. Can you eat an apple, orange, etc.? And so you have the people that observe that are so scared to die, they wouldn't even eat food. Now think about that for a second. It takes one, is it Mario or Luigi? Does Luigi eat the Mario or does Super Mario himself? And so in that, you start fighting with yourself. Well, who should live, who should die, saving the princess? Is it Mario that goes to taste the mushroom? Kill the turtle? Grab the star? Which one gets there first? Let's go out to the stars. We got Richard Branson. Let's go kill a turtle. We got Hawaiians. Do you kill the sea turtle or do you use them to swim? And grab the back of them so you can get to the next island and find where you buried your rum? Or do you eat the red cap, white polka dotted mushroom and live or die or grow up a little bit? And so the people that end up testing it, you got the Travis Pastranas that do the quadruple backflip and willing to climb in a cave, and you got astronauts willing to go out into space. And again, once a dumbass, always a dumbass. And sometimes we live, sometimes we die. But the people who just sit there and observe are the manipulators. And that's such a narcissistic thing to say, that they'll live to see another day. But if had it not been for me to test that shiitake mushroom, that golden cap mushroom, that red capped polka dotted white mushroom, that inevitably Lynn Hunstrud, Dan Dean, everybody else got to live the next day. And when I see the person of interest, is it the interest of knowledge to know? Where I'll write it down in the National Auburn Society of which mushroom keeps you alive and which mushroom you can eat on your pizza or the one that kills you, of the observers. But here's the thing about an observer, is if they always sit observing, writing it down, they'll end up never eating food. And again, back to my point, you want to have food first, food stamps. And now that the Health and Human Services of Jackson County wanted to play games with me and claim they need verification, a blue check mark. Yep, I guess you need blue check mark to have sex on Facebook and Instagram. That's the only thing that makes you attractive and sexy. Everybody else without blue check marks, they don't even exist. I hate to tell you, but they don't even exist. Okay, so that's where we're getting to, and all we do is follow somebody else's mental illness. Well, the observer that sits down and writes down this this wisdom, this knowledge about the mushrooms, you start to second guess yourself, just like you write down your hours on timesheet, overtime, time and a half, etc. And so you go food first, then you go job. You have to have food to survive, otherwise you die. And you get food and you wake up and you say, you know what? I need a job today. I want to pay for my taxes, my electricity, and to get a car. So you go to Workforce Connections. Do I have any unemployment? Yes, you do. All right, help me get it. So that way I can get off food stamps. And while I'm getting my unemployment, let's start applying for jobs. And they can't figure that part out either. They're saying, well, we don't want to have to pay your unemployment. The government wants to get rid of that. Like they want to get away with it. Like you have to do it within 2 months after, you change your jobs or you get fired from a job or whatever. And you start going through this again. You want to live to survive. You're going against yourself in a humane way, against yourself. If every damn politician actually got slapped so hard they hit rock bottom, every renter that's had, you know, 60 Manhattan skyscrapers, etc., I think they'd remember what humane is. And as I sit here and argue with women all day at Health and Human Services, as I sit here as entertainment, as eye candy, as an eyesore, as a arrogant asshole, as a narcissist, and say, you know what? And after you get the job you want to live to survive to pay your bills, supposedly. And it's such a crazy interference of what the observer does, just writing it down as a psychologist, psychiatrist, clinical observers, where they diagnose you. And they could diagnose you dead. Suicidal ideology. That's what Lynn Hunter did. She diagnosed me dead. Suicidal ideology. I'm saying, no, the things that created the suicidal thought process. Do I want to retaliate because I'm not getting food? Well, oh, and you got to learn how to grow a piece of corn and an apple tree. You have to learn how to grow a piece of corn and an apple tree. And you know what I did? You know what I did? And let's just go through this. Let's go through this. This is gonna be a little time. We'll make this video an hour, something like that. So, walking through my house right now. And here's the funny part. This is where the system backwards. At a judgment, the person of interest. This is where Dan Dean screws up. This is where Lynn Hunter's screwing up. I'm watching food stamp people. Because you have to have food first. Well, Owen, if you're so good at growing food and not codependent on the system, you should start growing food yourself. I said, you know what I did? Here's the interesting part. I did. I got a crab apple tree right here. You can make pies with, just like the Amish do. Okay. And then I got my Macintosh tree this year. And so hot. And we got deer coming in. I started. There's an apple. Can you see that? Should I take a picture of the apple? Hey. Oh, look, it's got a little wormhole in it. You know, it'll eat it anyway. And that's what I did. And I planted these when my daughter was born. All right. And I planted one other Macintosh. All right. So I got one Macintosh, one crab apple. And I did it. And I'm going through the process from the grassroots up, as Elizabeth Warren would say. And so in this, I'm now fighting with Jackson County Health and Human Services as they neglect me, my food for the month, saying, well, if I die this month, wouldn't you want your daughter to live or your son to live? You'd think so. It starts with food. You get a job or you get your unemployment, one or the other. And if you don't have unemployment, you got to get a job. This should be common sense, but it's not. Now they're starting to fight the food stamps. They're saying, well, Owen, you have to verify that you don't make any income. I did. I've verified for like the past year and a half now, our first year here. And so within that, I send my TuneCore W-2 taxes, $67 I made for the whole year. Well, that's not enough. Yeah, I know it's not enough money. It's not enough to pay for food. Well, no, that isn't the verification. Like, we have to know what your income is. That's all my income was. I'm like telling her what the income is, but that's not verifiable. So I have to go fill out paperwork tomorrow in order to get food. Well, if I die today starving of food, how am I going to fill out the paperwork tomorrow? It's backwards. Now they're starting to fight the system so fucking hard they don't even want to feed them fucking selves to be able to fill out the paperwork tomorrow. And this is where it's going to backfire in the future. Like, when you really start to, in depth, think about what comprehension. There's listening, there's observing. I see apple trees. I'll be able to eat this year. Observing, okay? Listening, can I hear the apple tree? No, but I hear a little bee passing around that pollinates it every once in a while. All right, and you got to observe that. You got to observe the bee pollinating. You go through the process. How the fuck did we get to a bee pollinating an apple tree? To knowing an apple is going to be there, or an orange, or a grapefruit, or a piece of corn, And so you go through this process and you start to find the people that diagnose people. The one that just diagnosed me for eating the fucking apple. And so what's funny in narcissism, when I go through my psychiatry, delegations, health and human services, humane, to be able to get food, going through a different stack of paper, starting August 21st, 2025, at my scheduled phone interview. Going into the next month, getting my time-limited food share benefits. This is emergency food stamps for 2 months when it's supposed to be 3. And we walk into it and we get the government shutdown in November, which was my first month of malnourishment. The government shutdown is saying, you know what? Are we overpopulated and we should kill ourselves? Should we kill ourselves? Let's shut it down. Let's cut off everybody's food stamps and see how much longer we live. Bro, if you go a month without food, your stomach's gonna hurt. You're gonna have headaches. You're not gonna do very good. I hate to fucking tell you. Where the fuck did that significance of a fucking smart person say, well, let's shut her down. Let's cut off everybody's food stamps. Let's make sure everybody on unemployment and their taxes, let's just make sure we stop it from ourselves for a second. Yep, my tummy is growling. I got a headache. I'm sitting here saying, how could I be so stupid to pay into taxes to somebody who just made the decision to stop feeding himself? If Trump, if Rockefeller, if Bloomberg all lived off the same way we do, they would have had stopped feeding themselves. They would have stopped feeding themselves. We have ourself, we have ourselves, we have them, we have themselves, and we have myself. And for some reason, I'm sitting here. And so in that, what do you do? What do you do? You say, they keep shutting the system down. They say, you know what? I don't even want to feed myself. Let's take the money. Listen, listen, Snowden. Listen, lead hackers out there. Erase everybody's fucking account for 2 months. For 2 months, please. I'm asking all hackers in the world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Edward Snowden, lead military officials, cut everybody's bank account, make it go to zero for 2 months. Because in that shutdown, when they can't figure out what's going on, they'll shut it down again because their bank accounts will go to zero. And they'll say, shit, how am I going to eat food? They're going to go searching in the woods. Which mushroom do I eat? Fuck, I forgot which one it was. I have to go to the library. I have to get a book. And where becomes wisdom becomes knowledge, right? And so again, I started growing my own apple trees. I figured it out. Self-sufficiency. You never need food stamps. You never need anything again. You just need to have at least 20 apple trees. And it takes. I've been growing mine for 15 years since my daughter was born. The tree was about 8 years old when I first planted it, which makes 8 plus 15. That's about 22 years. It took almost 22 years before it started creating apples. This was my third year with apples, fourth year. And this year it only has one because we had frost this spring and it bit the flowers. It bit the flowers and I only got one apple on my apple tree. Last year I had like 65. So I'm nowhere near self-sufficient. Nowhere near. I can't even survive, even though I've already obtained this knowledge. And so if you shut off everybody's bank account, Rockefeller's, Bloomberg's, Donald Trump's, Elizabeth Warren's, everybody for 2 months, to where they panic. They go out in the woods, they'd shoot deer. They'd go onto a cornfield, they'd start shooting cows. They'd go in the woods and they'd say, well, which tree can I tap syrup from? Is it a birch tree, a white oak, a red oak, a maple, willow, etc.? Which nuts can I eat? Pecans and walnuts and hazelnuts, almonds and all other nuts. And you start to fucking figure it out. And what's so funny at these shutdowns is when you fuck around and find out, if you actually put them all how we are in Section 8 and food stamps and shit, by the time they shut the system off, if they lived the same way we did in true, genuine equality, in everybody gets paid the same world, they would actually be shutting their own food off every time they do it. And they don't even know why the fuck they're doing it. That's mental illness. I hate to tell you, that's a mental illness. So as I diagnose Lynn Hunstra and Dan Dean and all these names, I'm name dropping for entertainment value in Black River Falls, Wisconsin, or Madison, Wisconsin, or Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I sit here and I ponder to myself, well, my food stamps didn't get turned on today. They claim I didn't do the right thing, even though I got assloads of paperwork been filing out. They claim they sent it to me in the mail. I'm finding tons of fraud. Pretty much attempted manslaughter, which they'll never admit to. But again, they're willing to shut the system down off to stop feeding themselves with food stamps that we created for ourselves to survive. And I really challenge this. I really wish we had a good Edward Snowden that could just make everybody's bank go to zero. Just memorize it, just copy and paste, just like Lynn Hunstra did with some of my notes. Just copy and paste it into one file, all their bank account numbers, and just erase everybody's shit for 2 months. And you'd come to find out how many people wouldn't even know what to do. So they'd shut down the system saying, hey, where'd my money go? Great question. Where is my unemployment? I shouldn't even need to do this. Great question. Let's go through that process. It's really interesting information. And so when you go through the process, here I am looking at the apples on my apple tree today. Shit, I'm hungry. Should I should I eat that apple today? No, it's not ready yet. I have more to learn from the season. The apple's not ripe, it's not ready to be consumed, etc. Or it is ripe, not ready to be consumed, etc. So I need to go start looking for mushrooms. Are morels popping out? Are morel, shiitake, or chanterelle mushrooms just hanging out outside right now? No, they only come up during certain humidities, certain times of the season. Therefore, I already missed my opportunity to eat, my opportunity to pick, my opportunity to freeze dry, my opportunity to cook and boil and can them. And so, in this interesting information, when you go back to square roots ones, if you wanted to know how you could overthrow a government, it isn't just making their bank account go, but it's who you realize, who you don't want to be partnered up during Mad Max. And that's everybody that created money, that's sitting there on top of it right now, that fully believes if they shut down the system, they stop feeding themselves, or they stop feeding their racketeering regime, everybody below them. And it's just as embarrassing to sit here and really dig deep on what Mario and Luigi did to save the princess. Now, should I say Lynn Hunstra, as she sat there and she just observed me eating that mushroom as I died from eating the red capped polka dotted white red mushroom? No, I don't think so. But she'll live because I had to take that risk. I took the Travis Pastrana risk. I did the quadruple backflip. I took the risk. I decided to say, let's build a bridge over this river so we can get to the apple tree across the river. And you have the observers. They just sit there and look and they just stare across the fucking river and they say, how do I get across? And they never fucking figure it out. And you start to figure out who you want to live with during World War III, who you want to live with during Mad Max, who you want to live with in an economic depression. Is it the pretty girl that knows how to snort cocaine and show her tits but can't knit socks for the winter? Probably not. Is it the politician like Donald Trump or Howard and Lily Buffett that haven't actually grown the seed in a long time? They might have bought a property that has the apple tree, but have they grown the seed from germination? No, I hate to tell you, it takes 22 years just to get apples on a tree. You can try and see Lily Buffett water every day, or Howard Buffett water apple every day just to get the tree to grow, but they're already behind. Go see some of their new properties they bought, and if they planted an apple tree, they probably didn't because they're not prepared for the future. They're not prepared for us to starve, just like the government shutdowns. And so, what's the point of this video? Not a goddamn thing. Just me talking to myself, ourselves, themselves, about them who don't know themselves. And once you find the person of interest, in interest to that information, on whether or not I'm going to sit back and observe Lynn Hunstra eating the mushroom this time, you really realize how far we've gone just to diagnose ourselves, to diagnose others. And the very people in that system on the political side that never diagnose themselves shut the system down to prevent food stamps from feeding ourselves, to make sure our brains function good enough the next day to even fill out the paperwork. Just scribbles, just crayons on a piece of paper. Hey, look, I drew Where's Waldo. I hope you have interest in this. And what ends up happening at the end of the day is you come to realize how mentally ill they really are. That they're so codependent on the money and the food themselves, they would never go take a bite of that apple. Or Donald Trump would go eat that apple right off the tree right now, say, nah, it's the last one, we'll just eat it and get it off the tree right away. And he wouldn't have anything to eat the rest of the year. And when you really start to dissect what rock bottom is this depressing for my friends like Mo and T-Rone and Crime Mob and everybody I consider my street family coherent to this existence as celebrities with blue check marks? That blue check mark ain't finna save your life. I'm out here hunting. I'm out here looking at the morels, the chanterelles, shiitake, whatever grows here in Wisconsin. I'm looking at my apple trees I planted, 15 years ago when my daughter was born. She'll be 16 this year. And every time I go through this process of how far I would be in self-establishment, now I have the judge punishing me because I went towards self-sustainability to get off the system of food stamps. And they're upset with me. I'm not codependent. But that side shuts the system down to stop feeding themselves. So I would love to do this whole put everybody's bank account to zero for 2 months and see where they become codependent. It's not the farmers. Don't think the farmers. It would be Health and Human Services, and then go to get food stamps. That'd be the first thing they do. After about 2 weeks, they say, "Oh, I can do it. I can man it out." And the dumbass men will go in the woods and start shooting deer. We call that poaching. Nope, can't do that. Only during certain times of the year. And when you go through all these processes of that thought process, you start to realize what side are you actually helping. And so when I talked to Chelsea Yeski, my workforce connections advisor, it has specific policies that should assist me in getting my unemployment. There should be $147,000 sitting there, along with all these extra back timesheets and retaliation that weren't accounted for because they wanted to play two sets of books, and he burned them that day in front of me, meaning he doesn't even have a copy of the originals anymore, which is retaliation. And it's interesting information. And as much as they get away with it, as much as they get away with it, and whatever psychosis in the mental game with themselves. And when they do that to their own kids, now when I become an employer, well, I work for Shady, Atlantic, Def Jam, or I end up owning my own company, OmoneyRecords later, I have enough income, I'm going to make sure that that karma is just the same, that they can't collect their unemployment, that I burn their timesheets every year they exist, burn them every year, just say they don't even exist. And that when they leave, and again, this is a mental illness, whatever they do to you, they would do to themselves. And that's how you know you can't trust those people. And so the people who are shutting the system down, saying, you don't need food stamps for the month. If you put everybody back to zero and codependent on that system, they would change their minds drastically. They'd say, nope, leave food stamps on all year round. Save the tree. Stop doing every 6 months paperwork. You'd be surprised on what those changes really are, right? And so as I stare at my apple tree saying, damn it, the frost bit them this year. I only have one apple versus 58 like last year. And for some reason, the lady's arguing with me at Health and Human Services about my food stamp, whether or not she'd feed her own son or daughter, saying I'm the one not following the policy. Yet I'm in a good cause for an exemption for workforce connections on the verge of homelessness, no transportation, and waiting for unemployment, which are three causes to go into exemption. The exemption from being at workforce connections, as I only have a bike to travel back and forth to work. A bike can only allow me to apply for the jobs in which I can ride my bike to. And at this is the same probable cause to get food stamps. And if you go exempt with the food share or with the workforce connections, it puts you into the food share program, which then allows you to get food to survive. And it's backwards. It's backwards to saying, well, I think I should get my unemployment because it's sitting there. I wouldn't need to be on food stamps for shit, probably like 5 years with how much unemployment. That's without electricity or paying taxes, one or the other. Survival first. And then you go write-offs, right? And for some reason, when I dissect this in the system, there's a lot of it that doesn't make sense that makes you want to work harder. And then you find fraud from TuneCore, fraud from BMI, even though I have a copyright and trademark, and all these scribbles on a piece of paper. Well, there's just this the timesheets that my boss burned the originals to. He burned the originals to that I made photocopies of, smart enough, proving he retaliated the day before I argued that I was going to the Business Bureau. And in that side of it, communicating that he would do this to his own kid. He thinks his own kid doesn't deserve time and a half. Because again, treat others as you want to be treated. Do unto others as you would do unto yourself. And so in those commandments, how much we've really lost ourselves. Ourselves. And every time we dissect this in this weird way, you find those people that would do that to themselves. Well, I'd never do that to myself. I'd pay myself so good at my own company. I would just make sure the rest of my employees don't have it. Right. And here we go, building the Sequoia pyramids. Yep, I will do this for myself. And you know what it did? It just sits there. It's a fucking museum. You go there, you hang out, it doesn't hold water, it doesn't generate electricity, it doesn't do a fucking thing. And you figure it out, you fuck around and find out, and you figure out that person just had a mental illness. And you know what they did? They didn't build it up. They didn't build it up. You get even smarter. You realize everything was just sand there. Everything was just sand there. What they did was they dug down and they just kept pouring water and pouring water and pouring water, and they'd take a rope and they'd slice it. And there's brick number one. And then they pour some more water and they dig down and they dig down and they dig down. What's easier, lifting a brick or being at ground level and then just digging down and throwing all the sand away on each side of the desert? Digging is way easier, and you just pour water on it, pull a line, pull a fishing line through it, and it looks really symmetrical. How did they do it? That's it. That's the trick. That's the backward side of science and the dinosaur stuff, and you start to become a genius at that level. We didn't fucking build the goddamn pyramids with a bunch of heavy ass bricks like a bunch of dumbasses. Work hard or work smart. The smart guy says, no, I'm just going to dig it out, pour water on it, it's going to solidify. You take a fishing line, you pull it through the damn sand while it's still wet before it hardens into a solidified sandstone concrete form. And you figure it out in a genius way. There's no way I'd want to pick up 800-pound or 5,000-pound oak tree and stand it up and say, oh, it grew by itself. It didn't grow it shrunk. Yeah, that's not how it works. And you start to find out where the geniuses work and how much they really lie in the textbooks. And we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves whether or not we are planet hopping and what we did with our own circumstance. And each one of those circumstances and defamations of ourselves, and each one of those circumstances to finding what's right and wrong, and what we should be doing, to what we create for ourselves, to have some type of meaning in this due process. And so, on these scribbles on a piece of paper, as I dissect somebody else's mental illness, whether it's OmoneyRecords LLC that LegalZoom created for me, and somebody else's mental illness, and you go through all the paperwork, registered agent, notice of service, articles of organization, limited liability company, OmoneyRecords LLC, United States Corporation agents, and you go through all this stuff and you start learning what scribbles. Somebody sat there with a crayon, and you get the operating agreement. Somebody took the crayon. This operating agreement of OmoneyRecords LLC, the company is entered to poop fart, and you get your IRS. You get everything going here. Then you go to BMI, you get your online application affiliation, all you own. And then I'm a performing rights person, like I write songs like performing rights. And you get your certificates, and you get your ledger for your membership interest, and you get all this fancy stuff that you gotta carry around in your backpack every day, just so people don't steal shit. And it's heavy. I carry about 85 pounds on my back every day, back and forth, just to make sure people don't fuck me over again. Then you get your trademark application, etc. You start making your OmoneyRecords contracts. You want to sign artists for your $1,000,000, and then you find out TuneCore and BMI screw you over, so you can't sign anybody, and it starts to piss you off. And then you just keep track of everything. A workshop tour, making sure that the music video, consent form, your wedding contracts, your taxes. You start going through all this scribbles on a piece of paper, and you try and figure out, am I reading the National Auburn Society of OmoneyRecords and what he ate to live and what his artists ate to die? What are they eating? Did they eat the apple, the orange, or the red-capped, white polka-dotted mushroom? Interesting information. And so, am I just the observer, or am I the doer? The doer eats the mushroom. The doer eats the apple. How did we freaking get there to know what corn is? And then somebody started naming the fucking thing. You started naming the goddamn thing. That's a piece of corn. That's an apple. That's an orange. And so you go through this, and we get so far established. We're like, yay, we have tons of corn, we have tons of rice from China, we got tons of wine and alcohol and rum and beer from yeast, and we've established a lot in life. And you know what you're doing? You know what the government's doing? They're starting to shut the system down, and they're saying, hey, let's cut food stamps off to everybody. We don't deserve our own hard work, even though we pay taxes in to those people, which is us employing government. The employees employ the government to make sure we're taken care of so we have food and unemployment. And they're getting so fucking stupid and inbred, and I'm gonna call them stupid and fucking inbred, that they're starting to shut down the system. Let's go back to this again. Let's go back to this. So we got our first document. It says August 21st. Hey, Owen, you want some food? Food share interview. Then we get the time liability or time limited food share. Oh, in September, October, November. Well, it only has 2 months. Here's the funny part. I got this piece of paper before the shutdown. That was 2 months before the shutdown. You define premeditated crime. Here's a premeditated crime written on paper. Hence the protest. Federal government shutdown delays food share. We're gonna delay our own food to our fucking selves because we pay into the fucking government. We pay in to other quote unquote smart people to delay ourselves. We delayed ourselves. November benefits for food will be delayed. We will stop our own food as government officials. We will stop our own food. So I'm sitting here hungry as the President of the United States said, oh, that steak was good. That steak was good, let's say, at the end of October. That steak was good at the end of October. Here's Trump saying, oh, that steak was good at the end of October. You see it on paper, right? Can you see that? October. Oh, that steak was good at the end of October. You know what? I got a good idea. Let's shut it down. Let's stop feeding ourselves. And I don't want to eat for a whole month. Yeah, I don't think anybody ever said that. But that's how inbred and stupid they're getting. Now they loophole paperwork. Paper to convince themselves that they don't want to eat food for 1 month. And I'm sitting here saying, man, that must be a dumbass. I like to eat food every fucking day. So you start to read over the paperwork. And again, when I find a loophole, which is here, 10. It says 10 on here. Can anybody see that? Can anybody see that? It says 10. Hold still. It says 10. 10 is what? October. October. 11 is November. 12 is December. What? Am I right? 10. And they knew it. They knew in October they didn't put November down. And this is how you find a premeditated crime. It doesn't say anywhere in here the government will be shut down in November. Be careful. Don't eat 2 months worth of your emergency food because it's going to be shut down. Please conserve. Doesn't say it anywhere. Doesn't say it anywhere. And you sit here and you think, and then in November you get a fancy piece of paper saying, you know what? November benefits will be delayed. And I found a premeditation, like they told everybody. They told everybody on paper before they shut it down, as if the shutdown didn't happen within when the shutdown was supposed to happen. And when you start to think, when you have interest in paperwork, and this isn't interest payments, this isn't financial interest, this is interest in wondering why, I would hire some dumb motherfucker into the United States government to say, hey, let's all agree. The guy we're hiring, hey, we the people, the American people, would like you to shut down our food. We think after 1 month's worth of food, we don't need any for a month. And so I'm sitting here paying in my taxes, property taxes, my income taxes, and I'm sitting here, what fucking dumbass would continue paying into income taxes and property taxes when the dumb motherfucker in office shuts the whole system down, says, I don't even want to feed myself today. I'm such a genius. Does this make sense to anybody? So when you find premeditation, it's really interesting information. Document it. documented information on state benefits. And so I'm sitting here arguing with Food Share today. You want food first. Then you go to Workforce Connections. You say, I want a job or I need my unemployment if I have any back pay left. I haven't collected that shit once. I should have like $150,000 in it. And I'm trying to get it now. And for some reason, it's still not here. It's still not here. And for the same fucking reason of ignorance and stupidity, when you write scribbles on a piece of paper, I, Owen Bradley Ewell, male of July 24th, have a birth certificate. Has a birth certificate. He just scribbles on a piece of paper, I guess, with a crayon to convince myself I am Owen Bradley Ewell, which means I get to use that birth certificate on my Food Share. And they said I need verification today. I said, verification, I exist, I'm alive, to get food? What the hell? And she's arguing so hard, like she doesn't want to feed her own son or daughter. Well, I have to have more scribbles. I have to have more scribbles on a piece of paper in order for you to even eat the food. I says, well, if I'm hungry and I die tonight, I won't even be able to scribble tomorrow. I won't be able to scribble my signature or scribble my income. She says, no, tonight I think I'd like you to risk that. And then you're going to ride your bike in tomorrow and you're going to risk scribbling on an empty stomach. Yeah, I might just have to go outside and shoot a squirrel or shoot a deer or something. Doesn't make any fucking sense. And so we're getting so far political into vocabulary words that we just scribbled. Okay, and it starts to hurt the brain. You get really, it starts to hurt the brain. And I can't argue for 5 years, 10 years, 1 year. Now I'm looking for, damn, I had this fancy piece of paper I wanted to show everybody. I guess I moved it somewhere. But in those fancy scribbles of what type of paperwork you show to convince yourself. Yep, I moved the fancy piece of paper, goddammit. To convince ourselves that fancy pieces of paper need to exist with scribbles on it. And here it is. And so this is what ends up happening with other people who run the federal government. You have this fancy piece of paper. One got his first $1 million. He got his first $1 million note. It's not real. All the below to reading. You're not good enough for God, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. I don't know. I found this on the ground outside by Walmart. Anyways, it says 1M, $1 million. It's a fake note. And what you do is you just scribble on it. My name's Haley Ruan. And I'm going to write 1, 0, 0, 0. I'm going to make George Washington. And I'm going to hand this over to you. And I'm going to say, hey, hold on to this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some titty pictures. I'm going to go, whoop. I'm going to take some titty pictures. And now what I did is I'm printing off the titty pictures on glossy paper. Now this is green matte flat paper. And what I did is I took some titty pictures. And what I did is I printed them off on glossy paper. And so what I did is I gave them to that guy over there. I said, you know what? Hey, hold on to this green matte flat paper that I scribbled on for me. He said, sure. So what I do is I print off these titty nudie pictures from Playboy. I says, hey, I have a barter for you. I have a really shiny, glossy photo. It's a really pretty photo. Out of the Playboy magazine. It's a really pretty photo, and I can't show it to you, but I'm willing to barter with you. How about you give me back that green matte flat paper I just drew for you for this glossy photo? And you know what? I have to convince that motherfucker all the way over there. Yeah. So what I did is I traded some titty pictures of myself back for the money. And I got the money back. And I drew the money myself. And what the game was, is both of these were printed off. It was either titty pictures or it was $1. And you start to find the system. And it gets really scary because you need food first. And when you go through that food system, you need to find yourself an event ticket. to be there. You gotta be there. You gotta be at the event. You gotta be at the event. And sometimes that event comes few far in between. Few far in between. And to be at that event, you actually then need a personal recommendation. Dear Madam or Sir, I am pleased to recommend that Owen Yule for position with your dance organization. Owen is a highly qualified individual at many levels and is an experienced dancer, choreographer, teacher in the social dance class, and his strong attributes. In the past 3 years, Mr. Yule has been in my class and accomplished the following: tons of fun choreography. Signed, Poop Fart, Denise Beckman. And then, after you get done participating, you get the certificate of participation. You get presented to Owen Yule, Nutcracker, Mother's Eater, a party parent. Which one was I? You have no fucking idea, but I was the Nutcracker on December 20th, 2015. And that was just another scribble on a piece of paper. And then what you did after that is you go to entry-level driver training certificate, which is for a Class A CDL. And I got my Class A CDL, diesel truck driving school. It was just another scribble on a piece of paper. And after that, I got my diploma at diesel truck driver training school. I got my Class A CDL, July 17th, 2009. And that becomes really, really interesting. That I ended up getting more scribbles on a piece of paper. And after that, I went to Madison East High School. Well, this is before that. And I got another diploma. Some more scribbles on a piece of paper that verifies me that I'm verified as Owen Yule. Owen Yule, with the diploma from Madison East in July of 2004. And so when you go back through all this, when you go back through to the first time I was verified with my birth certificate, and every time I've been verified through that, you get verified by God. Certificate of baptism. Owen Yule, Candy Yule, I am. If anybody sees that, the Candy Man. Anybody wants to know. Anyway, this is kind of a sense of humor, but at every scribble on a piece of paper that I collecting pieces of paper with scribbles on it, proving I'm verified without a blue check mark in the verification of documented paperwork that's physical versus digital imprint, I also then digitally signed that paperwork for food share with my vocal tone at the 6-month renewal digitally. And so tomorrow I'm going into on paper, scribbles on a piece of paper, go through the same process on making sure that the food stamps get verified by myself, that I'm alive and well. And my food stamp should have been turned on today so I can eat good to make sure I get there. Problem is with the government, they're telling you don't want to eat food. We don't want to give you food because if you survive tomorrow, you'll scribble on paper. You'll end up scribbling on paper because if we give you food today and you feel good, oh, that was a good steak. My name is Donald Trump. What'll happen is if you eat food, you'll feel good tomorrow and you'll want to ride your bike into town and you'll want to scribble on a piece of paper to verify that you needed the food. And what they did is they said, Owen, we're not going to give you the food today. What you need to do is starve for one day. And we're going to have you ride your bike in tomorrow and verify that you're alive still. We're going to verify you're alive still. Just to be sure, we should allow you to scribble on the pieces of paper we give you to scribble on. Because if we give you paper to scribble on, that means we'll have to do something. We'll have to scribble on other pieces of paper. We'll have to scribble, and we'll have to put exempt from workforce connections because he's waiting for his unemployment. He only has a bike for transportation, and he's on the verge of homelessness. And then you get to your resume. Music is medicine. And this is an old resume. I've updated it since. It's called LinkedIn, which is a digital formatted checkmark verified application in the digital world, but it's not paper issued. So we go back to it. This is a resume open for such artists: Crime Mob, DJ Hunk, Twista, Crooked Eye, Dirtball, DJ Smack Silly, etc. Current collaboration with DJ Hunk. We never finished, even though I paid for it. Break it down. Sorry. Rest in peace, DJ Hunk. Crime Mob, with T-Rone, Mo Money, collaborations, Kevin Gates, etc. And the background experience, all my teaching, choreographer, etc., etc. And that's what we call a resume. that when I go to Workforce Connections to become exempt, proving I apply for jobs as I'm self-employed, I then go to TuneCore and BMI, who are royalty collectors, who also have pieces of paper you scribble on. And let's get back to that. What did I just prove again? What did I just prove again with that shit? I can't remember. What was it? What was it? Was that the OmoneyRecords LLC Legal Zoom scribbles on a piece of paper? Right, I think that was that scribble. And so I go back through it and I say, you know what, BMI, I need some food. I don't want to go to food stamps. I don't want to go to, go to poverty level. I think I should have my royalty checks from the songs that I put out years ago. And I'm sitting here going through these goddamn scribbles. The goddamn scribbles on a piece of paper. I'm wondering, where the hell did I make my mistake? Because in this weird way, between the IRS, my IRN, or whatever the hell it's called, or sole proprietor, my operating license for OmoneyRecords, limited liability company, etc., that I own a business with all these scribbles from the IRS on pieces of paper for my employer ID and all this other stuff. But I thought the scribbles on a piece of paper did something with my trademark. My trademark lawfully, also through LegalZoom and my trademark service application. So we're going to have to go through this to what I would like to make this for the USPTO. That I was registered to BMI to get paid for online writer and affiliation with BMI. So that way I make sure I get paid money to not have to collect food stamps. And for some freaking reason, for some goddamn poop, when you have to go poop, you have to go poop. And for some reason, I'm asking BMI, I'm asking TuneCore, I'm asking all them motherfuckers. All them motherfuckers. Who the fuck went out and ate the shiitake mushroom? Which one went out to eat golden cap mushroom? Which one's out here proving it to me they're willing to risk their life for it? And you know what I did? I planted those apple trees. Those aren't scribbles. Those aren't scribbles on a piece of paper to verify me that I'm hungry today. And I worked for, a hotel and Flying J, a restaurant, and Arby's and Subway, and I've made food for you to make sure you get fed the days you're hungry. And for some reason, the very system, I said, Owen, what you need to do is August 21st, you need to call for the interview to get food. I says, all right, thanks for the scribbles on a piece of paper. I said, yep, I hope you can read them. I hope you're coherent in reading my scribbles, as I hope my mental illness of the English language vocabulary scribbles enter your brain in some type of comprehension that you know how to scribble on pieces of paper back to me. I said, you know what? I'm going to scribble back to you. See if you can comprehend what I'm scribbling. That's what I said. And by the time I got back, I said, well, you got your emergency food stamps. Congrats. You got September, October. And it's a 3-month program. I only got 2. And the next thing I know, some dumbass, now out of all the years, I'm 40 years old, and I started working at about 12 years old, 14 years old with quality management. I start laughing. Pretty fucking hard. That I pay income tax, state tax, federal tax, and property tax to some dumbass that says, Owen, we're going to shut down the system, and your November food benefits will be delayed. You won't get to eat anything. And I start wondering, why would I pay my income taxes, my federal taxes, my state taxes, and my property taxes for some dumbass to tell me I'm not allowed to eat food? This is why the protests are happening. I hope this hits comprehension, because at some point you have listening, you have observing. You the American people, can you see me? You guys looking through the screen? Are you guys looking through the people? Are you guys inside the cell phone looking at me? Why am I looking at myself? And once you find comprehension, or find observation, you have understanding. I understand why I kept these clinical notes. Hey, Lynn, let's figure it out. What am I reading here? Well, the 25-year-old poop heart, she calls it ongoing significant depressive problems that are not being treated at this point. Not being treated. depression, suicidal ideology, ideation. Okay. No. I need my unemployment, and in order to get my unemployment, I have to live tomorrow. In order to live tomorrow, I would need food. And for some reason, the guy that my property taxes, my income taxes, my state and fed taxes is paying right now to assist me to make sure I get food and to make sure I get my unemployment, in which I worked really hard for, that's documented on scribbles, with scribbles on a piece of paper, that I said, hey, I'm paying you some money. Make sure when I'm down and out, when the economy crashes or employer passes away, car accident, goes out of business, that I can keep my house over my head. And you know what that fucker said? He says, we're shutting the system down. You're paying me to shut the system down so you can't eat or have your unemployment. And that's what you're paying me to do. That's what they're saying now. I hope comprehension hits with Howard Buffett, Howard Coward, Lily Buffett, Ariana Rockefeller, and Donald Trump. We have more than enough food. Every person I see in the food pantry line, oh wait, that's the leftover foods that are expired. Let's go into another mental illness here. There's like 85 to 150 people in one day. And I said, when I walk through Walmart and I go back into the back aisle of Walmart, I said, how much scrap do you throw away every day? I said, well, shit, we got enough to feed probably 150, 200 people. And that's just the waste of expiration date. And I said, really? There's like 85 to 150 people. And they're like, yeah, we have like 200 people's worth of expired food back here. They actually could put everybody on food stamps, and they could turn it on for 1 year, and they could skip the 6-month review and probably save a couple $1 million in trees a year. But they can't figure it out because we hired them to figure it out, and they forgot. They forgot when you shut down the system, you would need food. You would need food to go into Workforce Connections to get a job, the manpower to get a job. And when you have unemployment that you pay the government to, you pay taxes, federal taxes, state taxes, and property taxes to make sure the people in government always have your unemployment ready for you and always have food ready for you. And you know what they're doing? They're shutting the system down, and they're saying, you know what, we're going to delay you the food because we don't think you deserve to eat. That's what they said. That's what they told me. I'm like witnessing stupidity, inbred, dumb motherfuckers. Dumb motherfuckers trying to figure this shit out. I promise you. Vote for Owen Yule.